Hi, welcome to another program on our energy. I'm Patrick. I'm working with CSU Extension and 4-H, and we are bringing together to you programs that is brought to you by us, 4-H, and as well as the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. So we actually ended up creating a bunch of these kits that were given away by curbside pickup. And inside of these kits, you got different things like the potential drag racer, where they created things, where youth created things out of cups and created a little drag racer. We also learned about different energies, like whether they're fossil fuels, solar, wind, and we took these energies and we created a poster out of them. So today we're going to go on to program number 7. So if you look in your packet, you'll see a box like this, and it says program number 7, solar. So we're going to be making a solar and oven today. So excited for you guys to learn how to make this. And this actually works. And we've done it a few times with kids, and it actually works pretty well. We've dried apples with them and been able to cook different things like warm up your pizza and stuff. So what you'll need, if you don't have the materials, if you weren't able to pick up the curbside pickup, you will need a box like this. And the box will need to be cut out into three sides and leave enough room for you to have a place to tape the saran wrap. Now you also will need foil. You will need saran wrap, some tape, a skewer, or a straw would work too, and some scissors. So we're going to start off doing this activity with you, and we're going to be learning all about solar energy. So solar energy is really, really cool because we get our energy from the sun through radiation. And so this is the movement of heat waves that actually comes down on our Earth, and it heats up our air, water, and land. And then the heat from there either transfers into convection or conduction. And we'll explain a little bit about that. So as we learned about, and Misty and Michelle were explaining earlier in a program before, that energy is conserved. It's neither lost or gained. It never comes into existence or leaves existence. It's always being transferred from one to another. So energy doesn't just pop out of nowhere. It's always moving from one place to another. And it's either coming like from the sun and heating up a thing, and then that thing heats up and moves into another area. So it's always moving and fluid. And this is where what we call the let me grab this. The law of conservation of energy. So, okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started on our solar ovens as we learn more about solar energy. So, as you can see, it's a box, and inside the box, there's it's blank right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some black paper, and we're going to tape it on the inside of the solar oven. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that. And in the meantime, I will tell you about this, what I was talking about, convection and conduction. So now, conduction is when you have anything that comes directly in contact with two materials. So when heat is touching two materials. So like, for example, when the sun heats up a wall of our house, and then the heat gets moved from one area of the wall to another, like whether it's going to heat the surrounding air or go the wall's touching another wall and it heats up that wall. So that is all about conduction. Now convection, and you will want to tape these in on the inside. Convection is where you, is the interaction of fluid of materials. And so that's like, have you ever felt on one day you're walking out and the wind blows and it feels cooler? Or if you cool yourself with a fan, that is all about convection. So, so heat will work in those two areas, and they'll interact throughout our Earth. Now, engineers are always thinking about ways to help you use these this heat transfer. And so, for example, when when they're thinking about insulating the walls of our house, this is so that heat doesn't enter the house or it doesn't escape the house. So it keeps it as a good temperature for us to live in. So inside of our walls, there's insulation. It's kind of this fiberglass kind of material that's really itchy. And this insulation allows heat to not go through it as much as it would in other kind of materials. Now, a quick pause. The next step is we're going to take the tin foil, aluminum foil, and we're going to wrap it around on the top of this, okay? So another thing that engineers have to think about is, like, for example, what about electrical cords? There's a wire that goes through the cords, and they have to be very careful as to not, so that the wire doesn't shock somebody. So this is really important because there's a little plastic that is covering the wire that is called that it insulates the wire. And this is one reason why we use insulation and different kinds of insulated materials, so that heat or electricity won't transfer and actually hurt us. What about an engine? Like if we had an engine and it was running engine, and what if we wrapped it with insulation? What would happen to that engine? What is your guess? So if we wrapped it with insulation, that means the heat wouldn't escape the engine, right? Yeah, so if the heat doesn't escape the engine, it would overheat the engine and it would probably ruin some of the things. So you can see this in not only in cars and things where they have to keep things cool, but you also see it in technologies like computers, where you need a fan that cools down the engine of the motor of the computer. So if you can think of any other ideas, then definitely comment and let us know of other kinds of things that engineers do to make sure that heat either keeps at a temperature or doesn't cause problems with either our electronics or other kinds of day-to-day life. So engineers always have to think of how heat affects the different kinds of components of their machinery, whether they're building a wind turbine or they're building a computer that, they got to see how much heat needs to be, if it's in direct sunlight or whatever, they need to figure out these kind of things so that they don't, so that their materials don't get ruined. Okay, so as you can see, I've taped all around and I've created this reflection. So the next step is we're going to put a saran wrap around the edge of this box and tape it on there. So cooking, how do we heat food? That is a question that is very important to ask. We heat food with a microwave, right? Or maybe we use a fire outside, or maybe we use our oven. So we can heat our food in various ways. But one of the fantastic things that we can do is heat our food using the sun. And that is what we're doing today. And the sun's energy is, first off, has many benefits. For example, the sun's energy is free, so we don't have to pay for it. The sun's energy is going to be there for as long as we live, and we can use it to help heat our food. It's also something that doesn't use fossil fuels. So if we want to use fossil fuels for something else, then we can conserve on these fossil fuels and heat our food instead of using fossil fuels with the sun. And if you get the right amount, you can heat almost pretty much anything that a fire or an oven would heat. So it's very, very useful. And it's super fun. And so if so right here we're creating, we're using aluminum foil. The sun, we need 3 different things in order to make a solar oven. And those 3 things are, first off, the reflection. So we want as much of the maximum amount of sunlight to come into our solar ovens. So we use reflection, and this right here, this aluminum foil, it will be used as our reflection to keep, to allow us to have as much sunlight as we can and to have it shine into our solar oven. So I'm taping right now the saran wrap, and we're taping it all along the edge of the box and along the edge of the aluminum foil edge. The second thing we need is thermal energy, and that is converting the sunlight's energy into heat. So we're going to convert the sunlight's energy into heat so that it heats up our whatever we're cooking, whether it's warming up our pizza or dehydrating our apples or whatever you would like to do. So you want to make this almost as airtight as possible, because we want to create an area where it keeps this heat in, and that's where we come to the third part that I was saying that we need for a solar oven, and that is insulation. And just like we were talking about insulation in our houses that keep a normal temperature, we want insulation inside our solar ovens so that it keeps the heat in. So once the sun reflects on the aluminum foil, comes into our boxes, then this heat will be trapped inside. So we want that, and one of the things that we're using as insulation is our cardboard boxes. Now, cardboard is a pretty good insulation, and it'll do us pretty well for these solar ovens. There are other materials that are a little bit better. You can get a certain type of foam that is very heat resistant, and there you go. Okay. Okay. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm opening up the flap of the solar ovens to show you where you would be able to insert your food in here. So we talked about reflection, thermal energy, and insulation. The last thing that we need is absorption, and that's why we use the black paper. We want the sunlight to absorb the heat and to keep it inside of our solar oven. So once again, what's happening is the radiation from the sun that is found in the heat waves comes to our cardboard box, which is the insulation, and keeps the heat inside. It reflects off the aluminum foil, and it gets more heat into our oven. So another trick that you can do is actually put a like a brick or something that has a high heat capacity, because it will take a long time to heat, but once it's heated, you could keep that brick in there and it'll keep things warm even after the sun is gone. So you can have all kinds of cool tricks, and there you have it. You have your solar oven. The last thing that you would like to do is we can poke a hole at the top of the flap and in your box, and you can go ahead and have a kind of adjustable that adjusts as you want with the sun. So I just want to tell you about these projects that we've been doing. This all comes thanks to a grant called the Imagine Science Grant. And we put together actual little booklets that talk about all about energy and all of these programs that we've been learning about through the Colorado Model Railroad Museum and through CSU Extension and 4-H. And we brought to you guys these programs that youth can follow along, have ordinary items that you can find around your house, and learn all about energy. So I want to thank you once again. If you have any comments, please comment below our video and we will reply to those. And thank you again. Please go through all of our series and watch the rest of our videos on all kinds of cool things about science and our energy. So thank you very much, and take care and have a good day.